Great. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another monthly installment of the Sandwich Generation Group. I'm Philip Barr. I'm the head of adult services here at Fairfield Public Library, so I'd like to welcome you all. If you were here last month, I'd like to welcome you all back. This is part of a 6-part series. Paul Doyle, who's here, he and his wife Susan are from Oasis Senior Advisors, and they are the moderators of this group, of this 6-part series. So just to give you an idea, in March, they'll be doing finding and utilizing community resources. In April, skilled care. In May, legal issues and best practices. And then wrapping it up in June, navigating hospital stays. So we had a great month last month, and we're looking forward to more information for everyone. So I'll just turn it over to Paul. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bill. And thanks for everybody coming. Again, this is a series to be as comprehensive as we can in navigating senior care. That's what the first session was called, Navigating Senior Care, and we stayed at a 10,000-foot view, and we touched everything from in-home all the way to skilled nursing. And now the rest of the series will dive down deeper into each of those subject matters. Today we're going to be talking about at home, and that's what people want to do. They want to stay at home, so how do I do it? We brought, what we're trying to do too is to bring in local experts in the field to give you both themselves as a resource and their knowledge base as something you can tap into. You find all the time that people learn best from stories, anecdotes. What are other people seeing? Wow, that's similar to what I'm experiencing, or I can relate to that, and it's something you can take. It's the mission of this is to get people talking about this. Over the 6, we're probably going to have a dozen experts in here that you should all treat as local experts, and you should feel free to reach out to them with any questions you have, either now or going down the road for any of your questions. So tonight, as I said, we start with in-home, and I have to my immediate right is Neil Anand, who is the owner of ComForCare Home Care, which he opened in 2018 and based here in Fairfield over there in Heritage Square. ComForCare provides in-home care and offers special programs for people with Alzheimer's disease and other forms of dementia. Neil is a Fairfield native, still lives in a town, and has fond memories of spending many hours here at the Fairfield Library. And did you ever get thrown out for being a little?
I was pretty quiet, yeah. SATs or studying.
Next to Neil is Bryan Collins, and Bryan is a certified aging in place specialist and the director of sales at Collins Medical and Accessibility, a 93-year-old family-owned business owned and operated company here in Fairfield. They are a full-service durable medical equipment and home accessibility provider, specializing in equipment, diabetic insulin pumps and supplies, CPAP equipment, and home access solutions like ramps, stair lifts, and bathroom renovations. To Bryan's right is Sheila O'Brien. Sheila has owned and operated O'Brien Care Management Services for the past 12 years. She and her team of nurses help clients and their families navigate through the very complex medical world, managing their homes in a safe and efficient manner, helping during medical appointments, and managing medications and caregivers. She earned her Bachelor of Science in Nursing from Fairfield University and holds licensure in the states of Connecticut and New York as a registered nurse, and has certification as a certified care manager through the National Academy of Certified Care Managers and the Aging Life Care Association. So pretty good on bona fides. This will be an open discussion. If you have questions as we go, that's fine. We haven't worked as a group like this, so generally we leave the questions to the end and you can have access to us. We're going to talk about some topics that we got together about a month or so ago that we find are the most common questions that we get from families looking to stay at home. So with that, I'm going to start with what the heck everybody is. So Sheila is a geriatric care manager. Sheila, what's a geriatric care manager, and what can you do and what don't you do?
Okay. There's a whole lot more that we do than what we don't do. So as Paul said, I'm a nurse, and what I did before this was case management with visiting nursing, and I would be given a referral, and then I would bring in all the disciplines that would be covered under Medicare or Medicaid, like physical therapy, occupational therapy, AIDS, social work, and then coordinate all of that. That was in the visiting nurse world, and then about 15 years ago, I went from that to the care management world. And care management is so much, I like it much better than case management because there's no limit to what you can do. The guidelines are whatever the person needs and whatever they're willing to accept. So we coordinate any kind of care that people need. Some people come to us because their children live out of state and they just want somebody checking in on them. Some people have a hard time following their medication regime, so we help coordinate that. We accompany people to doctor visits, and that's a very, very big relief to people and their families because there's somebody there that can interpret things. Doctor visits are very quick and a lot of information is given, and it's very difficult to remember things sometimes. We make sure that homes are safe and that people are not alone. If people need help at home, Neil would be my go-to person. And he would bring in, and you have to make sure that what's being brought in is the appropriate amount of care for the person. And then almost always, if people want to age in place, home modifications are going to need to happen at one point or another, or on an ongoing basis, and that's where Bryan comes in.
So Bryan, let's go there. Durable medical equipment.
Yeah, so
What does Collins Medical do?
So we do a lot of different things, but durable medical equipment, DME, is anything that you use to assist in a daily activity. So you have bathroom safety, you have wheelchairs, hospital beds, anything you can think of. We have hundreds of thousands of items that we sell. Canes, crutches, walkers, it can go on and on and on, but we do a lot of different things. We have the medical equipment company, we're in Fairfield. We have a retail business. I recognize some familiar faces here, so I think some people might be familiar with us. But we also do diabetic insulin pumps and supplies, as well as CPAP products, which is continuous positive airway pressure for people that have sleep apnea. And then we also do home modifications. So we're licensed home improvement contractors. We can build a house from the ground up. We don't usually, but we could. We're licensed to do so. But what we really do is go in and figure out how to make a home a house for a lifetime, which is really kind of our tagline, where we'll go in and renovate a bathroom, put in a ramp, widen doorways, move bedrooms and down to one-level living areas, put in stair lifts to access second floors, you name it. Anything can happen that can make you safe. We're very focused on fall prevention, so a lot of it's going to be staircases and bathrooms, and that's really it.
Okay. And Neil, so you have a home care agency, was mentioned in the intro, but there are a lot of different people who come in. Tell me a little bit about what you guys do and specifically.
So in general, we're coming in to take care of you at home with a home health aide, caregiver, probably more general term, but home health aide, CNA, certified nurse assistant, and this is totally up to you and the family in terms of how you want to structure this. We're going to work with you. It could be as much or as little as you want. A few hours a day. It doesn't have to necessarily be every day. Families can be helping out. And then there's some people who get to the point where they might need round-the-clock care for various reasons. They actually do require that amount of care. Families aren't around. A live-in aid, for example. But we'll start with what works for you, and we're flexible. And from there, it really ends up being a journey. So I think when you're doing a good job when you've been with families and clients for years, right? And we've been with people till end of life. And so as needs change, we adapt. We make sure we have the right match, the right caregiver. It's of course you want to have somebody who knows how to take care of basic needs, but personality is important. A lot of things come into kind of like the matchmaking process, I guess you could say. And it's been a pleasure to work with all of you. And sometimes the transition is out of home, and that's why I want to talk to you. Home modifications, as Bryan said, he's done done bathroom renovations for clients of mine, big projects, and I'd say with Sheila, we work together a lot, particularly, I'd say, in complex situations where we both know that, we're gonna do right by the clients and the families, and some of that could be because they're not physically there, and some it could be because it's difficult for family members who might not be in the healthcare industry, going through challenging situations. We want to make that as comfortable and as easy for you as we can.
Okay. I want to start with, if we're concerned about care in the home, we're not going to rush to bring things in. We're not going to rebuild the house right away. I'm concerned about what I should know about. Susan always says, you don't know what you don't know. So let's learn it. But let me learn from your experience. Each of you in your position will go into a home and assess it. You're professionals that go in to assess it. So what does that entail, and what can the rest of us learn from that? That if I'm just going to go home tonight, what can I be looking for at my home to assess its safety as I age?
Do you want to start with
Sure.
So, in terms of what I would do, every time that I work with a client, it always starts with an assessment. And that assessment is a tool that I developed based on my visiting nursing career and me working with another company as a care manager before I opened my own. It's a head-to-toe assessment, medications assessment, and then a home safety assessment. And depending on how the person is moving around the home will dictate what I would recommend. So for instance, we call some things furniture walking. And somebody is comfortable in their home, but they go from one piece of furniture leaning on to another, and that's really not a very safe way to go about that. So that's where I would bring in Bryan, and because you do everything from canes to walkers to transport chairs to wheelchairs, all of that. And then you really need to assess, these people are still want to be as independent as they can be. How are they getting in and out of the house? How many steps is it outside? Are there railings outside? Is it uneven? Is it even? Can we make things, the garage is a great tool because it's not anything that interrupts the look of the house. So Bryan's gone in and put in ramps, and you do great work, and it does not impact the way that the house looks. So that's how we get started to see how people need. And you always you look at how the medications look in the home. If you can get into a refrigerator, how fresh are the food items in the refrigerator? That's where an aide comes in really handy, because you could just say to somebody, we'll bring in a cook, and the cook is the aide, but the aide is there to make sure that everything is good. While they're there cooking that meal, they're also making sure that the medications are being taken, and their eyes and ears.
So if there's one thing that somebody has to take home tonight, I'm gonna go look at my house fresh tonight. And what is the first thing that I can do on the do-it-myself level? I don't wanna bring anybody in right now. I'm not at that stage, or don't feel I'm at that stage. But what can you counsel me on to look for that might be a good safety check? I mean, from all of you, you walked into those houses, what's an easy thing for a non-professional to do?
Start with the walkway.
So yeah, starting with outside, making sure you have a clear path getting up to the house or through the garage, handrails going up. The biggest thing for me is clutter. Any hoarding situations or clutter needs to be addressed, and I find that brutal honesty is really one of the best ways to do it. If that doesn't work, then consult somebody that's a professional. You can find people who are declutter specialists and move managers and things like that. All that exists. But loose carpeting is huge. So if you have any carpeting running down hallways, things like that, that's all things that you'd want to address. Then from a home access standpoint, when I go out to the house, it's just looking for fall prevention, looking at fall risks. So getting out of the bathroom, simple stuff. putting in a grab bar, anybody could benefit from having a grab bar. You're wet, you're naked, you've got nothing on your feet, you're stepping over a 16-inch step onto a cold floor. Having a grab bar for anybody is something that it's not going to hurt, let's put it that way. And it's not expensive. It's an easy, quick solution that can help prevent a fall. When we do a home assessment, it takes 25 minutes or so, and we just go through a bunch of different things and kind of put together some ideas that may or may not work. Starting small things up to full-scale renovations, and it's really up to the family and the people who are involved in the decision-making process to decide on what's needed.
Yeah, your grab bars are really very fashionable too.
Yeah,
They
you
look
can.
like towel wraps.
Yeah, you can have them become fashionable. Universal design is something that people really like to focus on, so it doesn't look institutional. So you can have grab bars around and make the house look nice and not look like it's part of a hospital room.
Yeah, fall prevention. That's probably the most common reason why we get a call that's not proactive but reactive. Something bad happened, right? And hospital, rehab, and nobody wants to do that. So I think as proactive you can be about that is the best you can do for that.
Is the throw rug just the worst invention in the climate?
Yeah, we call it the orthopedics next vacation.
I saw one yesterday, and she even said, she's like, I don't even know why I have this here. I'm like, okay, let's get rid of it.
Right now,
Roll it up
before
and
I leave.
throw it away. She's like, yeah, I trip on it all the time. I'm like, yep, okay.
Well, what
Throw
are
it
some of
away.
the other things then? Because we said, you touched on hoarding. There's not a single person who's a hoarder who introduces themselves saying, hi, I'm a hoarder. So I'm sure that we don't think that, we think that. And you mentioned, Brian, you said clutter.
Yes.
Well, I'm just not the neatest guy. I'm Oscar, not Felix. And so, but what are the things that are common that may that may become a problem?
Stacks of magazines next to the couch, subscriptions, like just stacking up. My grandmother did that. It's like, why you have every magazine of Bon Appetit from 3 years stacked up next to your couch.
And then
They
they fall
fall
over and people go on.
anything like that. If you're not using it, use like a rule of thumb. Like it doesn't matter the amount of time, but set a time. If I'm not going to use something within a week or 3 weeks or 3 months, and it's been sitting in the same place for 3 months and it gives me no use, or I'm not using it and it's not decorative, throw it away. What's that show that was viral on Netflix? Marie Kondo.
Oh, yeah.
Does it bring you happiness? Does it bring you? Is it doing anything? If it's not, get rid of it. It's taking up space, and you can trip over it. Then get rid of it.
Okay.
Yeah, pathways have to be clear. That's very, very important.
Okay. So, and as we, if we're starting to do it yourself, right? We're going to still be in do-it-yourself mode at this point. What are some of the operational things to the house that we can concern ourselves with? And what I mean by that is identifying and handling family roles. My daughter's going to help, my son's going to help, my spouse is going to help, and what are the communication techniques and strategies for that are effective? And just on running the house, I think when we talked last month, you mentioned something about getting somebody a second person a certificate for non-payment of things. Sort of like insurance, when the final payment due orders come through, and there's only one person who's on it. Well, let's start with the other. Let's start with the handling the roles that everybody's going to play and how to best outline that for everybody in the house. Maybe the spouse, giving the task and outlining them. What are the troubles that people have by not having the conversation about what I'm doing to help you?
Okay, so if you think about it, and we all do this on every day, we have to make sure that we have groceries. We have to make sure that the house is clean. We have to make sure that bills are being paid. People that are on medications, you have to make sure that that's being done, and you have to make sure that social and medical events are taking place. So it could mean that you need a calendar, a big calendar for seniors is a very big help. Pre-filling medications is a big help, and you could see when medications are and are not being taken.
Touch on what are the other possibilities, because we all know the pill box, but there are other solutions to that too, like the blister packs and whatever. What is
There's
the,
a whole lot of solutions for that. There's things that, you know, that it looks like a beehive, and when at 6 p.m. something moves and a little cup gets dispensed and then a little medication gets poured on top of it. And then if that cup is not picked up, an alarm goes off. And if it's still not picked up, then a designated person gets a phone call. So you could go that high tech, you could go to blister packs, and different pharmacies, there's not a whole lot of them, but there are pharmacies that will put things into blister packs for you. But there's anything from very low tech to very high tech.
So yeah, it sounds like we're talking a little bit about technology, and that's going to continue to, I think, play a big part in healthcare, because there's a caregiver shortage. People can't be there all the time. Our company's partnering with a company called Connected Care, very, very early on, but available, remote patient monitoring, RPM. Some of that relates to that. Some of that relates to sensors that could be in the house. It's not invasive in the sense some people don't want to wear a device. I'm still learning a lot about it. And it could be used at home. It could be used at assisted living. It uses artificial intelligence. I mean, I'm still learning all of this, and it can detect falls. It can predict, are you going to get a UTI, urinary tract infection. It kind of looks at what's your baseline, what's your routine, and you know what, if this person hasn't gotten out of bed or whatever it might be, you know, it triggers some sort of alert with some escalation system that, you know, who gets contacted first, family member, or, you know, all the way up to 911. That's the future, I think. It's going to help play a part in the whole caregiving, staying at home or wherever home might be. So I would
Oh, it's a
continue
big thing. Even
to look
Alexa.
out for that. You're going to start seeing more and more of that.
Yeah.
But those automatic pill dispensers are pretty, you know, they work. Yeah.
They can be very low tech or very high tech.
Yeah.
It really depends on what the person wants.
okay, great. Now, I want to stay at home. We all hear this all the time, and what is the first thought that goes through your mind when you hear that as a professional? Because you have to evaluate what that means for each person and then come up with a plan. So what are you looking for that's an indicator of what they want?
So we always want to, when we have our initial visit, we like to get as many people involved as possible who are involved in the care, right? So the 3 daughters, how many of you can be here? And so we kind of want to look at, well, what support system do you already have in place through family or friends or neighbors? And then where are the gaps? And I think at a high level, it really comes down to where do you need to fill in the gaps? And that could be, totally depends on everyone's situation. Some family members can be very involved, some don't want to be for various reasons. So I think we kind of look at, you know, what's the overall need? How much of this, you know, are you managing yourself, you know, family, friends, and then usually people are working during the day, and that's, a lot of times that's really when help is needed, the outside help.
Right.
For us, it's, you know, going in and coming up with a plan, and like I said earlier, kind of starting low, especially if somebody's getting discharged back into the home, starting low, and then getting them home, getting them comfortable. You don't want to bombard somebody who's coming home from a nursing home or a hospital after an injury or recovering from something, to have them arrive in their home that they lived in for 45 years to all this new adaptive equipment and new bathroom or whatever. So I always like to say start low and then go high, get them comfortable, and again, don't bombard.
Okay. What are some of the trade-offs? And because if we move from our totally independent lifestyle to one where we have some help coming in, there are going to be trade-offs and compromises we make. What are the things that people struggle with the most in doing that?
Stranger in my house.
Right.
So we like to minimize different people, different aides, and caregivers coming in.
Could you speak louder, please?
Oh,
It's hard for me
sure.
to hear you.
Okay, should we,
So,
Um,
just,
should we put these on?
Do you wanna put the mics on?
I don't know, maybe it's just me, I'm
Well,
old.
I'm happy to put it on.
Yeah, so they're just clip on, they're just.
Are they tied to the speaker though?
Oh, you can clip it onto your, that's perfect. And then, yeah, just turn these on and it should. Yep. You want your mic
All right, there you go. How's that sound? Okay, sorry about that.
I'm straining and watching your mouth here.
We should have did a mic check beforehand.
Right. Can you hear me now?
yes.
Am I
Is
on?
this any better?
Am I on?
You're
Yeah,
on?
so if you can hear me better now, I was just saying,
Yeah, Mr. Carter.
most commonly, like, I don't want a stranger in my house, right? So in order to build that level of comfort, you know, we really minimize the amount of different aides, caregivers coming in, right? We want, it's good for everybody, the same person and the consistency, and we've had people who, you know, have been with the same people for years, and that tends to work out. Initially, there is gonna be that hesitation, right, around like, who is this person? You really gotta spend some time to build that comfort level. I think that's, I don't think anybody is comfortable at first, but once you start to like somebody, it tends to work out really well.
It does. One technique that I think helps a lot is not to call them an aide,
True.
not to call them a CNA. We could say that, you know, among ourselves, but when you're talking to the person in the home, you're bringing in a driver. Maybe they can't drive anymore and you're bringing in a driver, and that's very, very helpful for those people. You're bringing in a cook, which is very helpful. So you could always just reword it, and it helps a lot. And then what we also tell the caregivers is, don't be right on top of them. Give them their space, this is their home, but be available. So sometimes what they do is, you know, wherever the person's gonna be, they might be in the next room. We've actually done things like a video monitor, like a baby monitor. And then when the person needs them, they're right there and available. And always tell people, give it at least 2 weeks before you try to make a change, because it just doesn't, you need that adjustment time.
For us, it's if there's somebody, a child helping out make the decision, it's positioning it to the loved one or the parent in a way where it's not something that is this huge deal. Like, for instance, a stair lift. You know, it's a piece of equipment that's going into your staircase that hasn't been there for the past 45 years. And they're watching mom and dad crawl or hobble up the stairs, and they're like, oh, I don't need one. Positioning it in a way where it's like, this is something that you're really it's gonna make your life so much better. And even like doing a trial or like trying to convince them to come, we have a retail store and we have one on display. Once they see it and can try it and realize that it's not that invasive, and maybe go for a test run on it, realizing like, oh my God, my back didn't hurt when I was walking up and I got all the way up a flight of stairs. So it's little things like that. You don't, and again, it's just, you don't want to bombard. You want to take it easy and try to be as smooth as possible.
And you can use something like that to bring your laundry up too. It has multiple.
And groceries.
Yeah.
Just be careful it doesn't get caught in that.
Oh, sorry, yeah, right.
Now, the impact to bring things in, we're looking for what is the litmus test for it? When do I know I can't do it myself anymore? I do need to make alterations to the house, or do need to bring somebody in, whether it be a cook or a housekeeper or any of those things. And I guess those can be, you know, Neil mentioned before, to be proactive rather than reactive. I want to learn, it's easy to say that, but how do I learn to be proactive? So what are the things that might indicate I should be looking at this? And I'll throw out one of them is sort of an emotional thing that we see a lot, which is a loved one loses their sense of self because they're becoming a caregiver. And so the spouse is no longer the spouse is the caregiver. And the adult daughter is the caregiver, not the adult daughter. And what they lose is that portion of their life, so in that relationship is gone. So that's an emotional piece. So if you could talk about that and the physical things, that might be an indicator that I should be looking into something to bring in.
So when the daughter doesn't feel like she could continue working is a big indicator. When the daughter just can't take a break, can't do anything, not anything for herself, but on a daily basis, it's interrupting her life. Having this kind of help at home really lets the daughter get back to being the daughter. Not being the cook, not being the caregiver, not being the driver, but just being the daughter. And it makes things much smoother.
Why is that? Why shouldn't she just be doing this for me?
That's a good question.
Because there's a guilt factor on both sides, right?
Oh, there's a whole lot of guilt factors, yes. And it gets to the point where sometimes you just feel like I might as well just move in because it'll make my life easier. I won't have to constantly be coming over. And then you realize, well, you know what? If Neil has somebody who could move in, maybe we'll give that a try. And you know, we call it the sandwich generation for a reason, because some of these moms can't be a mom and they're really struggling.
Okay, so where do we get this sense that somebody's really, really struggling? So where, we talk about caregiver fatigue or burnout, what are the signs that that's happening? And whether it be, we're talking a lot about the adult daughter, but plenty of times it's the spouse.
Yep, it is.
So what do we look for as maybe the indicator isn't for the person we're concerned about for their care, but the person caring for them?
So the caregiver, check their blood pressure. Truly, you know, this is, a lot of times we'll get calls from a doctor's office say, this is going to kill her. And it's not a wise way to continue. So that's one.
Yeah, if you're seeing the spouse's health suffer who otherwise is okay, healthy, right? Now it's like it's affecting the entire situation. So I think sometimes that's actually a really good point. Check for stuff like that as well.
So there is a litmus test.
There is a litmus test.
Yeah, but
And then-
everyone's situation is different, right?
Yeah, losing patience.
Things not getting
fighting.
done that normally were getting done. And even a few hours a day could like alleviate some of that stress for everybody involved.
Mhm.
For our stuff, it's more, I would say, if you're in pain doing something that you weren't in pain doing a couple years ago, and you're doing that on a daily basis, maybe time to think about something. Or if you feel unsafe doing something. If the moment you feel unsafe driving, it's time to have that discussion. The moment you feel unsafe getting in and out of your house, it's time to have that discussion. Same with stairs, bathing, getting in and out of the bathtub. Anytime you feel unsteady, unsafe, or you're in pain doing those things, then it's time to make a change and think about what can be done.
One of the people that we had, they had a chair on the landing of the staircase because they just could not make it up the boat. And that tells you you need a chairlift.
Taking a break.
Yeah.
Okay, so say I get to the point where I want to bring somebody in. How do I do this? You mentioned that it's going to be a big change, and this person is in my house, and I don't want to have somebody in my house. Could be the biggest hire anybody makes in their life, right? So how do I choose a caregiver?
Well, so I did leave something out there about what you should ask, like if you're working with an agency, not just me, but anybody, questions you should ask. Give you some more peace of mind on that, because you know a lot of it is our job to meet you and determine the right match. But definitely a lot of questions around what is your policy if someone calls out, or what training do you provide, what other are you licensed, insured, all of that, because there's a lot out there, but not everyone is created equal in terms of how they as much as possible, let's have a meeting before, as much as possible. Sometimes we, end up same day, helping out in situations, but as much as you can meet with an agency or whoever you're planning on, doing this in advance. Doesn't have to be, could just be like a week before or whatever it might be, and ask all the questions and have them come and actually visit you in someone, have me come to your home. Like, we want to see that. We want to see what's going on. We want to get to know mom. We want to see the home environment, assess for things like, fall risk and any, potential modifications that could make the entire situation better. So again, it actually does go back to just being proactive, but, and most should be willing to do that, no obligation, there's no cost to you. This is an initial meeting to help determine, what is best for you. So try to get that process done, a little bit earlier before, as you're starting to think about it. And don't be afraid to ask whatever questions on your mind. You should be able to answer it to make you comfortable.
Okay. And what sort of is the process of identifying how much care I need? Do I rely on a professional to come in and say, you need X, or, this is my house, this is my spouse, I have an idea. How do I determine what I actually need?
A combination, I think.
Yeah, that's a rule of thumb. If the person is alone and the person is forgetful or they're a fall risk, I personally think that it's really nice to have a live-in. And the reason I like a live-in much more than 2 12-hour awake shifts, which is another way to do 24-hour care, is, it becomes a much more relaxed environment.
It's less people too.
Oh yeah, nobody's coming and going. When a meal is being made, it's being made for the two of them together, which is nice. It's just like having somebody else just there when you need them. It's a nice environment.
Okay. Let's expand upon that a little bit. What exactly can an aide do and not do? And maybe when we get outside of that area, let's touch a little bit on these people that can come in. So we know colloquially companion, home care, skilled. What are the people that I'm going to have come in now?
So again, definitely, I left something out there. It's something that is very easy for people to understand. It's called, what we do, it's called 50 Ways We Can Help. Like 50, and there's more than 50 ways. I mean, it's everything from like, your core needs, right? If you need help getting into the bathroom, bathing, dressing, you have a walker, wheelchair. I mean, those are ADLs, activities of daily living. But outside of that, there's a companionship part of it. Look at the list: playing cards, clipping coupons, going to the store together, going for outings, medication reminders, laundry, light housekeeping. It's actually pretty broad, and that's why we like to sit down and meet the families to see, like, well, no, I don't really need this right now, but this would be very helpful, and we can just keep expanding upon the list. So it's really all of that. Our only limitations, as it's very technical, we're considered non-medical home care, right? So what we don't do, which is what's called skilled nursing does, and that's covered through Medicare, so like physical therapy, occupational therapy, wound care, that would come from someone else, but those are like usually short duration, a few times a week, has to be, signed off by a doctor. But we always work hand in hand with those kind of services. So for example, if you're getting physical therapy, whether at home or going somewhere, they might give you some homework to do, range of motion exercises, and while they're only there maybe a couple times a week, or you may be only going there a couple times a week, we can reinforce that with our caregivers, right? The homework that they give you, the exercises. So we are there for as much or as little as you need. It's really a decision between professionals, the family. What we're not doing is that the more medical side of things, but we can do medication reminders, make sure that things are getting done.
Now, a lot of this stuff is sort of generic as far as care goes, but I wonder if I brought somebody into care, to care for my spouse, and now she starts to have some memory issues. It didn't start that way, but now there might be the thought of cognitive impairment, or even further down the road, dementia. How do the things that we've talked about already change? What do we have to inject into it at that point? How does it complicate it?
People with dementia, over time, I'm trying to remember, we just talked about the rate of wandering.
Well, you just put it at 70.
72. It's high. So, you need to make the home safe. And that's where you guys have the home, the door alarms,
Chair alarms, bed alarms,
right.
sensors.
What are those used for? What?
Bed alarms and chair alarms, so if you do have somebody who's a wanderer or a flight risk, it's basically just a pad that goes on a chair, and then it has a sensor built into it, and then you can have something like this, smaller than this, in a room that the caregiver or the loved one is in, and if the person that is a wanderer risk gets up, it'll just beep, so that the caregiver knows that they gotta go check it out. They'll go back and say, okay, let's sit down. Same with beds. There's door alarms that if the sensor gets broke, it'll beep. You can go for like a $30 item to wiring your whole house, making it all smart, and you can spend a lot of money on that. So there's variations that you can do.
From a caregiving perspective, it's recognizing the signs of early, mid, and late stage dementia, because there are differences, and we are, all of our caregivers are very well trained in it. We have a program training we've developed, we do in the community as well. So it's really understanding behaviors and now how to adapt to those behaviors, how to prevent challenging behavior before it arises. So, when you're early stage, you can ask open-ended questions to someone who has dementia. As they progress, you want to give more closed-ended answers, maybe one or two choices, right? Because they're not able to process to the extent they were before. So we have demonstrations if you're in a grocery store, you want this apple, the green or the red. And then, unfortunately, towards the later stages, they might not even be able to communicate. And so now you have to be able to read and understand what they're trying to say, their emotions. So that's where, you really want to look for, resources where the caregivers that are coming in truly understand what dementia is, have been trained in it, educated in it, because unfortunately, it is a progression, and through each stage, you have to adapt how you do the caregiving.
Yeah, Bryan, you were touching on, it sounds like I can have my house rigged like NASA, the amount of stuff I can
These
have.
days, right?
But there are also just a lot of relatively simple and common tools. I mean, we talked earlier about canes and walkers and things like that. But those really are tools. And how do I know I'm using them right? And which are the stumbling blocks for, yeah, I got a raised toilet, or I got a shower chair, or I got a walker, I got a rollator, I got a wheelchair or transport chair. What are the things that I can look for to know that I'm actually using it properly, and what's the risk of not using it properly?
Yeah, well, the risk of not using it properly is a fall. So that's what we're trying to prevent. Not to brag or toot our own horns, but in our business, even if I wasn't involved with it, to see the value of going into a brick and mortar business and as opposed to buying something online is so important to touch and feel and see, instead of just buying something blind from a picture on the computer, talking to a professional who knows what they're talking about. Most of the people that work in our store are certified durable medical equipment specialists, certified fitters for compression stockings. Somebody is an expert in something. So if you're just, for instance, like, buying a toilet seat. If you go on Amazon, you're buying a toilet seat, I bet you a 75% chance that you're gonna buy the wrong one. There's so many different types of toilets, different shapes, different sizes, they're not compatible with one another. You have to know. So, I mean, we oftentimes have to tell people to go home and take a picture of it, bring it back to us, because then we can help them. Or set up an evaluation for us to come out and figure it out ourselves. So I would say that is the advice. Really work with professionals, do the best you can to get the answers that you need answered, the questions that you need answered, and be careful. You can always talk to doctors or therapists for things like ambulatory aids, canes, things like that. Are you using it the right way? Is it at the right height? All that kind of stuff could be answered by them, and if they don't know, hopefully they'll tell you to come to us, and then we can tell you how to do it.
I think one of you touched earlier on the idea of, everybody talks about the bathroom and the tub, getting into the tub or stumble and whatever. So I should just make my bathroom ADA compliant and get the greatest contractor in the world to come in and nuke what I got and make it hospital ready? Is that the only option? Because I don't want to do that, Bryan.
Do you want to tell them the story?
Sure. So you tell it.
So I have a client who has a very big bathroom and it's gorgeous, and a double walk-in shower. And she's at the point now where getting over that lip into the shower is very difficult. So without talking to me, the husband hired a contractor, and the contractor was going to start, and he just happened to mention to me that this was going to be happening, and it was going to take, I think, about 6 weeks and multiple thousands and thousands of dollars. And I said, can you hold off for a minute? And I called Bryan. He's like, yeah, we have this, what is it called? A
Shower buddy.
Yeah, and it is super. It's a wheelchair that goes into the shower, and it goes on a ramp, and it's just easy peasy. There's nothing to it. And then when it's not being used, the part that's outside the shower goes into the shower, and you would never know it's even there.
Yeah, I mean,
And-
it's an alternative to a full bathroom renovation. There's a bridge that, so instead of being able to have to step over the threshold, there's a bridge that's connected to the wheelchair and to the base that's in the shower. You lock it in place and then it slides across. You then take the bridge off, have them shower, and then slide them off onto the base that has the wheels on it. Put them back into their bedroom, and that's it. There's so many different products that exist. That's why it's important to have somebody that's an expert, because you do need to know what you're doing. And to kind of further to your point, you want to hire a contractor to renovate a bathroom to make it ADA compliant. That's it's a gray area. ADA compliance, ADA regulations are for commercial use. Residential, it doesn't matter. It's your personal opinion and your preference. You don't have to follow ADA guidelines for a residential setting. You can use them, but I would guess the vast majority of your everyday contractors, though they may do very, very good in skilled work, skilled carpentry, fantastic woodwork, tile work, whatever, I bet you that they would opt to put in a 4-inch threshold in the shower and call it a handicap accessible or an accessible shower, because it's, instead of stepping over a 16-inch tub wall, you're only stepping over a 4-inch threshold. Okay, well that's great. This is beautiful. Sign a contract, $30,000 later, you have a brand new shower, everything looks beautiful. 3 years from now, that 4 inches is impossible. You cannot use it, you're back to square one. So, again, looking at a professional that knows what they're talking about is very important, because if you were to do it and do it the right way, you would make a completely barrier-free shower. So there is no lip at all. Put in a trench drain, pitch it the right way so there's no water runoff, that kind of stuff. So it's just talking to the right people.
So in this case, Bryan came in at least 80% less.
Yeah,
if
that
not
unit is
more.
like $2,200, 20 something like that.
Yeah, as opposed to, I think, 30 or 40,000. It was a lot. And then how long did it take? Installation, education?
Well, to set it up took about 15 minutes, to train everybody, another 10, 15
Yeah,
minutes. Yeah, it's
so
very
half
easy.
hour.
So what are the other missteps on equipment Do I use a walker and a walker rollator? How do I make choices between these things and know what I'm getting?
Yeah,
Know what's right for
walker
me?
rollators are walkers with a seat, right? So walkers are great, but if you can't ambulate for a great distance, you're gonna wanna have the ability to take a break. And the only way to do that is with the rollator, where you would put the brakes down, sit, rest, catch your breath, and then continue on. There's lots of missteps. I mean, I can go on. That's a whole other
But,
talk.
you know, in terms of rollators, the person has to be competent enough and not arthritic enough to use the brakes.
There-
So in some cases, a regular rolling walker is a safer.
Absolutely. And there's tons of different price levels too, where, you know, you can set brakes by pushing a button now instead of having to, you know, really put down. I mean, you can go from $130 to $700 in that category. I mean, there's a lot, missteps, I don't know if I'm talking out of turn here, but I'll just say it, like, the biggest thing that I have on a day-to-day basis, I'm out in the field all day long, and I go on average probably to 8 to 10 houses a day to do these evaluations, and probably 25 to 30% of them are for ramps. And I can't tell you how many times I go in to tell people that they're expecting to just get a ramp on they have 5 steps going into their house and they just want a ramp. It doesn't work like that. You can't just get a ramp. They're thinking they're gonna have something like this. It's physically impossible to push somebody up a slope like that. It's
dangerous.
physics. No, it's physics. It's inclined plane. You learn about that in high school physics. So ramps are, you have, for every inch of rise that you have going up, you need a foot of length. So if you have 4 steps, 7 inches a step usually, that's 28 inches of rise. You need to configure a 28-foot ramp in your front yard. So that blows people's minds when they're thinking they're gonna be able to buy a portable ramp to get their mom and dad in and out of a house for a couple $100 to now I just gave them a quote for $8,000 for a ramp configuration. So that's a huge misconception and a huge misstep, that if you are planning to stay in place and somebody is either wheelchair bound or may progress to that, getting the ramping situation figured out is huge. Because here in Connecticut, in the Northeast, we have high steps because you're up on a foundation. So most of the houses are gonna be at least 4 steps up, 28 inches high, 32, 36 inches. So that's a big one.
Okay, how about any other devices that we mentioned the rollator using? It's interesting because I think of rollator helping me be mobile, and you're talking about it being most important for me not to be mobile, sit down and take a break. So there are what are the other most commonly misused adaptations? I mean,
And
am
the
I making
rollator is
mistakes?
not a wheelchair.
Well, not a wheel, yeah, that's very huge. And you can see on the rollators, there's a sticker that shows a big circle with an X or a line going through it with a big no, showing a person pushing a person in a rollator. You can't do that because you got somebody's facing you with their feet facing you, and you're walking, you're gonna step on their feet, and then it's a disaster. So there's obviously been lawsuits that made the manufacturer put that no sticker on there, I'm sure. But yeah, I see it all the time. There's people using commodes in the shower. You have to have a galvanized aluminum shower chair. Commodes are not, so they'll rust and corrode very quickly. So they'll have a commode and say, oh, I can just use this in the shower. And like a cane or a crutch, everything's adjustable on those legs with the buttons, just like you see when you have a cane, like over there. If it's not galvanized aluminum, it'll rust and that button will corrode, and then all of a sudden you go to sit in it and you're gonna fall right down in the shower, and that's very dangerous. But yeah, you can go on and on. Anything can be used in
All right, let's shift to how our misperceptions, misconceptions, and misuse of the human element that's helping us out. So what do you got, Neil? What do you find is the most common complaint you get from families about AIDS and from AIDS about families?
I think sometimes
That would be a
it's
whole nother subject.
yeah. I think sometimes it's maybe just misunderstanding expectations and roles. we're here for, there's a primary reason we're here, and then, of course, when there's extra time, there's other things we can do, we don't wanna just be like sitting idle. I think sometimes so for example, I mean, we do what's called light housekeeping, right? No problem with that. It's just not meant to be like a replacement of like a cleaning service, right? So, because, we need to focus on their safety. So anything that's related to their care, keeping their bathroom, clean, dishes put away, like the common areas, of course, but, if it's something just, if there's time, but we have to focus on safety first always, right? So, I think sometimes it's just, just making sure we set clear expectations. And it kind of goes the other way with the aides. Like, this isn't part of my, my job description. And for the most part, we're very flexible people. But I think, if the aides are maybe having an issue with something, it's not out of any bad intentions usually. It's, how can I focus on, what I was here to do, and someone's a fall risk, while a family member who, visits every 3 months, comes in with, with an opinion, and there's, versus, the person who's there all the time. And sometimes it's just family dynamics. So, we just want to know who's involved. I've had, had a client who's a couple, and they actually worked really well. It was 3 children, but they all had very specific roles. One was a doctor, so she was kind of like the medical decision maker, medical power attorney. One was an accountant. He was managing all the finances. The other one was somewhere in between, but she happened to live the closest, so she was there more often. So I think we just have to have, clear conversations, involve as many people as possible who are going to be involved. And I think at that point, you know what the roles and expectations are, and things do tend to run very smoothly. But let's get to know everybody who is going to be involved, or who has a voice, or has a decision to be made, and we'll work with you on that.
Sheila, what are the common complaints both ways on that? We have interpersonal in a trying time. We know what
The
happens.
library is closing in less than 30 minutes. If you need a library card or special assistance, please come to circulation. And just a reminder that the Wi-Fi will shut down at 7:45. Thank you.
So
Okay.
what do you hear as the most common complaint, or the most common complaint of a family of a caregiver and caregivers towards family? How can we learn from the experiences others had?
In both senses, caregivers are not magicians. If somebody is really, really struggling with getting out of the home, and a family member says, no, I want them out of the house every single day, and it doesn't bring joy to the person who's going, maybe that's something that we need to rethink. And and everybody needs to be a little patient. Sometimes caregivers come in and they are just so gung-ho, and they want to do everything, and they want to take over and really manage the home. And that gets tricky too, because the person who you're caring for is the boss. So you kind of have to, it's that fine line that you have to try to balance making people happy and having a safe home environment. And that's why when you said you'll go in and bring the caregiver just to do a meet and greet, it does help to get to know the personalities.
Very important, yeah.
Yeah.
Great. We hear a lot in the news about staffing, whether it be at the hospitals, skilled nursing, assisted living, the home cares. What are you guys seeing, and what, as families, what do we do to adjust this? It's a reality. This isn't about a change or any malicious actors. There was a dynamic change across a period of time. What is happening, and how do we react to that as the consumer?
Very
Easy one.
gingerly. That's a tricky question, because there is a shortage. There's a shortage of caregivers. So, these poor people that own home care agencies just, I think one thing that I love about ComForCare is the strong emphasis on educating the caregivers. So these caregivers go in there, there are certain things, you never say the word, don't you remember, to somebody with dementia. You never, there's a lot of never do things. And it's just nice when the caregiver goes in there and they already know that. They don't need to be, I don't need to reinforce that. It's nice to see that it's already, that they already know. A person with dementia that starts becoming agitated, when I used to hire people, I used to ask them that question and said, what would you do? And if they say something like, I just take over, I let them know that they need to listen to me, like they don't get hired. It's when somebody gets agitated, they need diversion. They need like bring them in a different room, just make the situation change.
Okay. So are there tactics that families can use or strategies for dealing with the shortage? I mean, and we've noticed that, for example, short shifts are very difficult, of course, and you know, what are just the realities that are out there that we should know about, those of us who haven't gone into it yet?
Yeah. So I can give you the reality, right? I mean, that's since COVID really, I mean, it's, ask anybody, my competitors, anyway, it's our largest issue, right? The getting enough people, quality people, and you know, I would say personally, I do everything I can to not make it your problem, right? That's why I'm here. So like, you're rarely gonna hear from me, you know, behind the scenes, a lot of things that we have to do. You know, but yes, if you can be a little bit flexible, you know, maybe an hour here or there, you know, someone starts, you know, yes, the asking someone to come in just for 2 hours is very difficult. I mean, think about if someone's asking you to, you know, between the cost of transportation, everything else, and we do the best we can, but that is certainly an issue. So, you know, if there's some flexibility there, obviously that's going to be very helpful. And I would just say more just open communication. Like I've had families wait a week to tell me something that was going on, that if you would just like call me anytime, like just come to me with it and we can resolve it. It's probably resolvable. But I don't want to get her in trouble and I don't want to, you know, it's okay. I'll handle that. Like if you still like her, she'll be there. But if we can fix something, let's do this sooner, earlier, rather than letting something, you know, linger on for a while. Then it frustrates you more, frustrates your mom more, and so I think just open communication too, and we'll do everything we can on our end to accommodate and be flexible.
Okay. So the last thing I have before we open it up to the floor is another uncomfortable one, because it's like, who pays for this? And the answer in a lot of cases is going to be private pay, whether we're talking about home care, we're talking about DME, we're talking about the services that you or a skilled provider comes in. Well, maybe the way to look at it is best, when does Medicare cover something in sort of in your silo?
You want me to
Sure.
address that? So, like I said, before I became a care manager, I was a case manager, and all I dealt with was Medicare and Medicaid. And somebody has to have what's called an acute episode, an acute problem. Whether it's they just came home from the hospital, whether they have a new diagnosis, new medications, a wound, a balance issue that's new. It can't be anything chronic. So it's going to be new, and the person has to be homebound. That's another big indicator, that the person has to be homebound. Homebound means that leaving the home is a severely taxing event, and it's very infrequent. It's leaving the home to go to a doctor, you could still be homebound. You could still go to church and be homebound, but it has to be it has to be very taxing for the person. So that gets you Medicare, and Medicare, once you're on a Medicare episode, every 60 days you have to be reevaluated, and unless you have an acute problem, you're not going to be able to continue services.
Brian, how about your space?
There's a lot of yes and no's.
Who covers the spare lift, right?
So, I mean, So Medicare doesn't pay for anything that is home modification related. So that's all private pay. So things like stair lifts, bathroom safety, ramps, all that stuff is private pay. Medicare will pay some, there are new Medicare Advantage plans that are coming out now that may cover certain things in home modifications, but it's really on a case-by-case basis. Medicare pays for a lot of the, what we call in the industry, bent metal. So that means like walkers, wheelchairs, commodes, hospital beds. All those things are covered under Medicare benefit with a medical need, with a medical necessity from the doctor. So the doctor has to write a prescription for it. You can't just come in and say, I have a Medicare card, here I want a walker. It's not a credit card, it's your benefit. You have the ability to, you're entitled to it if you have medical necessity. But then, you know, then you have, it goes on with incontinence supplies and orthopedic bracing. Depends. Orthopedic bracing is definitely covered with prescriptions, certain types. And then Medicaid pays for a lot of things, but again, it's all about medical necessity. There's waiver programs that are out there that people can tap into to keep people in the home. But again, that can go on for hours.
Right,
and
and we'll actually get into that a little bit more in the next session, which is the local resources, because Medicaid could be a talk all on its own, or a series all on its own. It's very complicated. I think you hit on it though. The rule of thumb that we use is that it's a prescription, and to your point about it, it's acute. So if I have bronchitis and the doctor gives me a medication that's take 1 pill a day for 30 days, and then the prescription's up, and that's when my insurance stopped paying. And that's everything from I come out of a rehab and I might get some care in the home for a period of time, but it's prescribed to get you on your feet, and it's fixed and it's finite, and it's not generous. And it's not going to be what you want. You don't get the call. So I think just be aware that I think that is a very common misgiving. So, oh, I got Medicare, I'm good.
any insurance, people, it's not just Medicare, and
Yeah.
people, and you know, myself included, there's an entitlement with health insurance. You feel that you're entitled to things. It's not always like that. It depends on the benefit, it depends on your specific benefit, the plan, all that kind of stuff comes into play.
Great. So I think we tried to rapid fire cover a lot of the issues that we face when we're trying to stay at home, and the decisions we're making and the resources that are available. And sure, we haven't covered a quarter of them. So if you have any questions, we'd love to hear them now. You of course can reach out to any of these guys. I'd like to thank you guys for coming by tonight and sharing your expertise.
Before we open it up though, can we just, one thing I didn't cover on insurance, long-term health plans, long-term care
Yeah.
will help
Mhm.
with home care and Neil's situation, and then it depends on the policy, but they will pay for modifications.
Please check out all material now, thank you.
You
So
gotta look at your policy, everyone's a little bit different, but generally speaking,
up to certain amounts, they'll pay for things, so it's
My
something to
services
look
are
into.
covered as
Yeah.
well.
yeah.
Under care for.
And the one thing people get hung up on with using their long-term care policy that they bought many, many years, you know, and keep paying the premiums at Genworth, Transamerica, MetLife, is what's called an elimination period. Like, it's like a deductible on a car, like, so for the first 30, 60, 90 days, you gotta pay out of pocket till it kicks in. But as far as they're concerned, a day is a day, it could be a few hours. Like, we submit, it counts, right? You're just counting down the clock, essentially. Once you're on claim, you stop paying all those premiums that you did your entire life. So now you're just fully utilizing, and I've seen people pass away not either utilizing or fully utilizing it. So it's something to really think about. Don't get too hung up on that, because this is long-term, it's for your long-term care.
Yeah, we find that,
And same
we
with
find that a
facilities.
lot. It's like, it's almost a stigma that I'm not gonna go on claim. It's the one thing you really wanted. You paid a long time for it. It's got value. It's a use it or lose it in most
Yeah,
cases.
use it or lose it, yeah.
So you wanna get it, and we counsel people even to go back, that if they're in rehab,
retroactive, yeah.
it's retroactive. So get the clock ticking, and if Neil said, if you only needed 2 hours the first day, that's still a day.
It's a day.
And 90 days later, you maybe have 12 hours of care and other things like that. So you actually want to be aggressive in invoking it.
And know the plan too, because a lot of times you've been paying it for all these years, you just, it's an afterthought, you don't even think about it. There's so much underlying little bells and whistles within that policy that having a knowledge base on it is so important, go a really long way.
Yeah. And the only other resource that we know that can come in here too is there's a little known benefit through the Veterans Administration called aid and attendance, which is a stipend that even surviving spouses can be eligible for. It's not as rigorous financial threshold as Medicaid is. There is some. We've got some stuff on it, on how to qualify for it. But if you serve during a period of time that we were at war.
Even 1 day, I think.
Yep, and it does not have to be a battlefield. My father was in the Korean War, he served in Dusseldorf, and he would have qualified. So it's something to look into. It's like, you look into your long-term care policy before you need it, and you look into these things before you need it, so you're right on it to go.
Is that a very complicated process, the veterans thing?
Well,
So there's
it
companies.
is the VA. There's a company, we have a sister
People we
sister
work
company
with
that
that
does
can help
an
you, yeah.
evaluation of it.
There's paperwork, yeah,
Yeah.
but once
But you
you're.
need to do it right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so use the company, it's
It's worth it, yeah.
definitely.
And it's the same with Medicaid, you know, I don't wanna get too much in it, cause we'll talk about it in the future. People have a hard time with the Medicaid, getting on Medicaid and paying anything for it. And I know it's very difficult, and I don't wanna spend people's money, but Medicaid can unlock hundreds of thousands of dollars. And if you look at what your return is gonna be, it's a bit of an investment. So if somebody's gonna need long-term care in a skilled nursing facility, for example, where around here it's $400 to $700 a day, if you can get Medicaid to pay for it, that's why people do it. And would you not pay $5,000 or $10,000 to get $250,000 a year? Anyway, that's a little flip. But anyway, so that's in home. This is in home. Like I say, if you've got any questions, I'm sure
I
to have.
do, I think for Neil, you mentioned that if you have trouble getting in and out of a car to a doctor's appointment, the aide can do that. Do they have their own car? Do they have to use your car? We really don't.
It's up, yeah, so that would be a question we ask, you know, would you like us, do you have your own vehicle? If not, we'll make sure that the aide has.
So is it more, do they get paid more to drive or?
No, if.
Gas money? Or-
No, it's really based on our time, right? Like, the only difference would be if you say we can use your car, just make sure there's gas in there. If we use her car, his car, her car, there's a small like mileage, you know, to account for the miles they drive. But if you use your own vehicle,
So
then.
they can accompany you to doctor's appointments or what?
Yeah, and it's not just like an Uber service, right? I mean, we're trained to get you safely there, to bring you up to, you know, take notes at the appointment, you know, and, you know, tell the family what happened and that kind of
Now,
thing.
what is the minimum hours per day? Is it like 2, 3, 4?
So, like, we say 4, but if you talk to me and, you know, I'm usually able to be flexible there, if it's like a transportation only,
No, I
you know.
mean in the house. If they don't need 4 hours of care in the house,
Mhm.
would you consider 3?
I would, yes. Right now, we're saying that, but if you talk to me, like, let's work it out, you know, I'm always willing to work something out.
I have a question regarding some of the equipment. I know Medicare will cover a hospital bed, but will they cover just a regular adjustable bed? Nothing.
Right.
So it has to only be a hospital?
Yes, and that becomes getting like an upgraded product and trying to get Medicare to reimburse for it doesn't necessarily work like that. But yeah, adjustable beds are not hospital beds. I'll give a 1-minute answer to a 45-hour lecture. Anything that's paid for by insurance has to have a code associated to it. It's called a HCPCS code. And if something doesn't have a HCPCS code, it's not billable. So you have, hospital beds have a code, wheelchairs have a code, adjustable beds don't. Just something that they will not pay for. Now, there is a difference between a hospital bed that Medicare pays for and a hospital bed that you can pay for privately that's not too expensive, that's fully electric. So the ones that Medicare pays for has a hand crank to raise and lower the height of it. And then it's called a semi-electric bed. So then the back and the legs are a push of a button. You can also just opt to buy one that's fully electric that does everything by a push of a button, and it's not terribly expensive, but it's not an adjustable bed. Adjustable beds are definitely a premium product that you're gonna have to pay for.
And then just one other quick question, if you were to get like a cane or a walker, like you said, you need a doctor's note, but am I literally bringing a doctor's note into Collins or into a pharmacy, or you're just, how do you like actually get Medicare paid for it? I don't understand that process.
So you also have to find a provider that's going to bill for it. Like, I don't bill Medicare for walkers, but certain other products we do. Again, 45-hour lecture, could go on and on. Medicare went out to a competitive bid years ago. Things have reverted back to the ways of old now, but with the way that the economy's gone, Medicare is looking to cut costs everywhere they go, while costs of goods are going up. So in a lot of the cases, what we as a business would get reimbursed is less than what we're paying for it. So we can't do that. Like, I can't provide a walker at $20 that I'm buying for $50, you know, it's a loss. So it depends. But yes, you would bring in a prescription for an item to a store like mine or a pharmacy to see if it's billable, and then we would answer the question based on the benefit and the product, if it's something that we could do. If it's not something that we could do, we would give you a list of providers that are doing it, and then take it from there.
Okay. If there's nothing else, we're gonna wrap up. We've taken a lot of you guys' time, so I really appreciate that. I hope it was of value to everybody. And as I said, take the brochure for the next one in March, which will be local lifelines, local resources that are available to help you through the process. So, thank you.